Retro figures aren't the only things with prices on their head. Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys Superpowers Deathstroke. A formidable operative for the U.S. military, Colonel Slade Wilson agreed to undergo an experimental process that increased his mental and physical abilities to superhuman levels. Rather than continue his career as a soldier, Slade became the masked mercenary Deathstroke. Now, just before we get a closer look at the Superpowers Deathstroke, let's grab the old tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. Right to the very top of the head, the figure of Deathstroke is 4.5 inches in height, or it's about 11 centimeters tall. You want comparisons? I get your comparisons right here. Something right now is turning up their speaker. Don't turn up your speaker, whatever you do, because everything I'm about to say afterwards is going to be a lot louder. Here's what Deathstroke, though, looks like along with Batman. And while, though, sharing the same bodies, Batman is bigger because he does have the points on the ends of his cowl. A figure, though, that isn't as big of a build as Slade Wilson. Here's what he looks like along with Flash. Here's what he also looks like with the recently looked at Wonder Woman, who happens to share the same wave as Deathstroke. We still have yet to look at Nightwing. And a figure that, like Deathstroke, does actually have an accessory. Here's what he looks like with John Stewart. I may have actually even mentioned in the review of Wonder Woman that John Stewart didn't come included with the Green Lantern, but now that I think about it, I think he did, because I did want to get an extra one of them to give it to Hal Jordan, the original Superpowers figure that I don't unfortunately have the Green Lantern for anymore. Yes. Speaking of the accessories, Deathstroke is lucky enough to have one. The figure comes included with a sword. Although not so lucky, unfortunately, the quality of the sword that they've given Deathstroke, it's a pretty soft plastic. I understand certainly you wouldn't want to give a harder plastic because any kid that's running around a hallway screaming, "Mommy, Mommy, look at me," and then proceeds to impale themselves in the eye. Softer plastic, I would imagine, still would inflict damage, but unfortunately does make for a much more rubberier looking sword. It's rubbery on the blade, it's also rubbery on the guard, it's rubbery on the hilt. It also means it's a lot harder then to get into Deathstroke's hands because Deathstroke has harder plastic for his hands. You see. You can fit it into his hands, though again, it's just really difficult to get him in there because every time you're doing it, the hilt tends to bend. I hate when that happens. Here's what the figure, though, looks like with sword in hand, and you wouldn't be able to do this over here simply just because he doesn't have a gripping hand on this side, so you only have one choice available. One choice is also not available on this figure is the fact he doesn't have a gimmick or feature. I'm sure the original Superpowers Deathstroke, if one such existed, you'd be able to squeeze the legs together, and you probably would just be doing this back and forth, until eventually you just got tired doing it. Despite not having a gimmick, though, let's go ahead and remove his rubbery sword for right now. It's a nice looking Deathstroke, I have to say. This one, I think, of the ones we've looked at, has the most that looks like an original Superpowers figure, just because it doesn't have to be a more modern looking head sculpt. I mean, yes, you could say that the sculpting that they did to the face is such more advanced than what we would have got with the original Deathstroke. Deathstroke from before probably would have just had a more smooth face and just painted the one side in the orange, of course, and then painted the little marking there of the black. And that's probably all they would have done. With the newer one that we get, at least from McFarlane's team, you get actually some definition to his face. You unfortunately can't see from the one side, but at least you can see from the other. And like in the comics, Slade does have at least a bandana here on the back. The bandana is attached on the back, and it looks like it's likely been molded there rather than not actually molded or glued in place. It's just two strips of softer plastic, but at least it's not going to get in the way of things when we are rotating the figure, which we'll talk more about in a moment when it comes to the articulation. You don't have to worry about holding your breath either and passing out, because the figures themselves only have 7 points of articulation: head, shoulders, legs, knees. Wow, I don't even have to cover it now. I'll still cover it. Got some nice blue there on the top. There's a little bit of a dividing line of a lighter yellow that kind of breaks things up just a little bit. He does also have a bandolier. Now, the bandolier I thought would have been a separate piece, but it does look like, even though it does look like it was attached on the back here, it looks more like it was molded to the rest of the figure's body. He does have the nice scale work done here for the lower mid-torso. I kind of wish I could have a belly top that would have scales underneath it. He's got scales here on the sides, scales also down below in his legs, but all the parts that aren't scales at least are treated to very bright orange plastic. He's got it nicely handled here. I gotta think, too, that they likely molded this all in yellow or all in orange plastic, and then they gone and went back in there and painted all the parts. Because you can kind of see like little areas where the orange is still left behind. Down here as well, you can also see where the black probably hasn't been completely painted. So I'm guessing it's probably been an orange molded figure, and then they've gone and painted the pieces after that. Still has his large buccaneer boots. These ones actually go quite high. I'm used to only seeing them where they're only about like that. But this one goes almost all the way up to the knees. He has almost knee-high buccaneer boots. Interesting. He also has a section here on the side, a little scabbard to hold the knife, but obviously you can't remove the knife. It's just all molded in there. But all in all, not a bad-looking Deathstroke. For the figure's articulation, here's the part you can actually hold your breath. The figure's head, now watch me start to delay this. I won't do that. Head rotates all the way around on Deathstroke. You can move the arms all the way around. There's no articulation here in the wrists, no on the waist either. Move the legs back and forth, and you can also bend each of the knees. Okay, now you can start breathing. Now, again, all in all, and he also does have pegals on the undersides of his feet. We can't overlook that either. And just though he doesn't come included with a display stand, I just want to bring in one that gets released with a DC Multiverse figure just to show you that you can, in fact, attach just a normal DC Multiverse display stand onto Deathstroke. He doesn't necessarily need it. In fact, actually, Wonder Woman was the one that really needed the display stand, simply just because she, again, has smaller sized feet. But you can use also those display stands with any of the Superpowers figures we've gotten thus far. And again, just to bring in a couple of other Superpowers figures for the comparisons, you know, again, like while all of these have sort of had a modern look to them, updating the look of the original designs of the Superpowers, I think that Deathstroke has sort of the more familiar classic look to him, just because, again, they didn't have to take the time to sculpt the face or anything like that. Because he's wearing a mask, he looks the most retro, I think, of all the Superpowers figures we've looked at so far. Rubbery or not, at least I'm happy to see that Deathstroke did get an accessory, unlike the Wonder Woman we looked at before, the other figure that makes up this wave. The only other figure that actually does come in this wave that does also come included with accessories is Nightwing. He comes included with both his sticks. So again, it's kind of strange, the fact that Wonder Woman, they had maybe something against Wonder Woman. They just didn't deserve to have a lasso of truth, even if it was just a gold string. That's all I would have asked. At least that Nightwing and Bookend on the other side, Deathstroke, would have at least come included with accessories. Yeah, the sword is rubber. It has a harder time to, of course, fit into his hand, because when you're dealing with a softer rubber handle for a sword and then you're dealing with harder plastic for the grip, you would imagine it would be a little bit more difficult to get the sword in there. It eventually does fit in there, and at least it's a proportionally scaled sword. It's not too big, it's not too small. In fact, this sword is just right at all. Rhymed, but it didn't sound as good as I would have hoped. As certainly already apologizing for the matter, I did actually pick these figures up like last month. Probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I ordered this online. And when I did order these online, I did order them at the idea that they were actually brand new. They just had come out. Of course, some time has passed. I can only do so many videos in the span of a week after all. Finally getting a chance to have a look at these. And I'm really actually glad that I am. I'm kind of getting that resurgence again, how much I was enjoying the Superpower stuff we were getting from McFarlane Toys before. I'm kind of getting that feeling, that vibe again, having a look at these guys again. Still, we are going to be looking at Nightwing. And again, if you guys are interested, pick these up for yourself. They should be available fairly easy to find through not only specialty stores. I think Targets and Walmarts are still stocking the Superpower stuff, and of course you can also find this online too. If you guys have been picking up any of the Superpowers figures, let me know down below in the comment section what you guys have been thinking of the line so far. Or is this a line that you've just decided altogether I'm going to pass on? I'm collecting already so much stuff from McFarlane's team, the Spawn stuff, you know, again, the Warhammer things that they've been putting out, and again, the tons of cool stuff that they've been doing to DC Multiverse. I just don't have the shelf space. You're saying to yourself loudly, I just don't have the budget. I can't get it all. And I get that. You can't get it all. But if this is a line that you guys have been interested in, what other characters would you also like to see make future appearances in the DC Superpowers line, or Superpowers line, that we have been looking at thus far? As always, guys, if you guys have enjoyed this video, I want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, keep in mind we are still going to be looking at Nightwing. His review will be somewhat right around the corner. It's going to basically be popping up probably after this video. But if you guys are enjoying the content and would like to stick around for more, please hit that subscribe button down below. And equally, please, make sure you turn on the bell notification. And equally, please, make sure you're coming back on a regular basis. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.